The Let's Beat Breast Cancer campaign for 2022 rolls on. And today we're going to be talking about risk factors. We're going to get into a lot of material that we didn't get to cover in the live Q&A with my guest here today. She is a renowned breast cancer surgeon. She is amazing, and she is rocking one incredible t-shirt today. Dr. Kristi Funk, welcome back to the exam room.
Hey, Chuck, Glamour Boy. Thanks for having me. And let's show off my shirt.
That
Eat
shirt.
Plants, Crush Cancer. This is the
Yes.
new shirt line coming to you from letsbeatbreastcancer.org, and they're all available for purchase. I happen to just have a bunch on my lap. Don't know why. This one is my favorite. Okay. Look at the buff sleeves. I'm loving it. It's like cut off, all hard. Like I'm going to go buy a motorcycle right now. Then we got V-neck, black, Eat Plants Crush Cancer, a little bigger, short sleeve. I've got it in a scoop neck, and this, I have to tell you, this has the main campaign, Let's Beat Breastcancer.org, on the front. The others have it on the back. And my fave, because I'm a tank top girl, this year at my special request, they made a tank top.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking that all looks cold, we got long sleeve. See, long sleeves. And I have to tell you, the black ones and the long sleeve ones are very boy, and my 3 boys and hubby are all wearing these shirts as we speak. I don't know if they're wearing them right now because I'm not watching them, but they were. And PCRM, I don't know what company exactly they use, but it's the comfiest cotton. Like, these are awesome shirts. I'm kind of obsessed.
Did you have a career working on QVC perhaps before you went into medicine?
I did not. But I will consider one if, breast cancer ever ends.
Yeah, right. You're a natural at it. You're an absolute natural. I got to go load up on those t-shirts now and get one of the buff ones for my wife too. That's amazing.
Awesome.
All right. So let's switch gears though. I mean, we have a lot of important stuff to talk about. Not that t-shirts aren't important, but t-shirts aren't necessarily going to save a life, but the information today that you are going to talk about very well may. So let's talk about breast cancer. I know that you put together a slide or slides that have a lot of fantastic information in there. We're talking about risk factors in there, and we did a lot with food during the live Q&A. I'm sure that we're going to have some leftovers from that, but I think you're also going to talk about just straight up how the standard American diet, that high fat, high calorie diet, how that can affect a woman's risk of developing breast cancer as well. And when you have the majority of people eating that standard American diet, there's a lot of people, Dr. Funk, who need to hear what it is that you're saying today.
Absolutely. So I hope it reaches their ears and affects what they put in their mouths. Here we go. We're going to share this screen. All right. So as we mentioned, we've got the Let's Be Breastcancer.org campaign alive and well. And we're doing something special this year. I invite you to sign up. All you have to do is put in your name and email, and boom, you will be granted access to our live Zooms. They're also going to interface on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time and 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going live with a different amazing person every week. The first week of October, Neil Barnard. Second week, we've got an amazing chef. It's Evelise Capo. Then we're doing, mocktails with Joe. What's Joe's last name?
Gonzalez.
Yes, Joe Gonzalez. He's a dietitian. And then the final week, we're having an inspirational survivorship story moment with Donna Green Goodman and Karen and Daryl Crisp. So don't miss it. It's going to be great. And also when you sign up, you get a free e-cookbook. You get a chance at cool giveaways, including free admission to my virtual summit, weekly newsletters, and just other live online events. So take the challenge, and I want to show you how relevant the challenge is. So we've got our icons here. Eat a whole food plant-based diet, exercise regularly, minimize or eliminate alcohol, and maintain a healthy weight. We're going to dive into those factors in scientific research-backed detail throughout this interview and the next one. But I want to show you how current and relevant those exact same 4 factors are. Those 4 and nothing more go into the Healthy Lifestyle Index. And this particular study, hot off the press, April 2022, followed 132,000 plus postmenopausal women ages 50 to 79 years old for just over 15 years average. And what they found is that those with a higher healthy lifestyle index, so obviously eating better and moving more, had 20% less ductal carcinoma in situ, stage 0 breast cancer, than those with a poor lifestyle index. And then furthermore, if you also had a strong family history, those women with a healthy lifestyle index had 34% less breast cancer than those who had a poor lifestyle. So these habits are extremely protective against breast cancer. You might be wondering, what is DCIS? In situ means that these are cancer cells, but they're stuck inside the milk tubes of the breast and therefore can never access lymphatics or bloodstream and spread. It is the most treatable, most curable, no chemo needed kind of cancer, and yet it still is cancer. And if left in a breast undiagnosed or untreated, about a third of it will eventually break that duct wall. The breaking of the wall is termed invasion. So when you're told or you hear a friend has invasive breast cancer, it does not mean it invaded lymph nodes or lung or liver or bone, although it now has the potential access to lymphatics and bloodstream and may have spread. So just a little bit on the breast cancer anatomy stuff, but I don't dive into the breast cancer weeds with you during these talks. I do find that people want to know a lot about how to maximally reduce risk and the chances of ever getting a breast cancer. But until you have breast cancer, like right there in your breast, and you have to figure out what to do about it, like a detailed discussion of what it is and all the ways we treat and cure it is not interesting. It's my life's work. Thanks for insulting me. I know you didn't. I just insulted myself. Okay, here we go. I want to tell you.
I love you. You crack me up.
If you look at women's diseases, you are 26 times more likely to develop cardiovascular disease in your lifetime and 7 times more likely to die from heart disease just this year than you are likely to get or die from breast cancer. Nonetheless, so we realize that heart disease is our biggest threat. Amongst the cancers, certainly breast cancer is our biggest threat. So behind skin, which includes those like completely treatable basal cells, breast cancer is the #1 cancer that women get. It accounts for 30% of all cancers diagnosed in women year after year. And we get a lot more breast than we do lung and colon. But as you'll see over here, we're pretty good at treating and curing breast cancer, but not great. So over 287,000 women will get invasive breast cancer this year, and about 42,000 will die from it, as opposed to lung cancer, where more than half of the women who get it die from it eventually, and almost a third of the women who get colon cancer eventually die from it. Okay, so some stats just to get a lay of the landscape here. There are 3.8 million breast cancer survivors or thrivers in the US right now, which is a testament to earlier detection and better treatments. But in my opinion, not a good testament to understanding maximizing risk, because maybe we could cut that number down by at least half by espousing healthy diet and lifestyle behaviors. And throughout this time together and next time, I hope I impress upon you the facts behind why that powerful stat of slashing breast cancer incidence in half or more is completely doable. Hey men, you have breasts. Did you know that? So men, including Chuck, have breasts. Not a lot. It's a little breast bud centered behind the nipple. And it formed there in utero, because the first 6 weeks in utero, guess what? We were all the greater sex. We were all tiny little fetus girls. And then testosterone came out and ruined it all for you boys. However, it came out after the breast bud developed, as did the nipple. And so that's why those things stick around and out throughout your life and can indeed get breast cancer. So this year, about 2,700 men will be diagnosed with breast cancer and 530 are going to die from it. The death rate from breast cancer has gone down about 1% per year since 2013, again, because of earlier diagnosis and better treatment. So much so that the 5-year survival rate for node negative cancer, so this is when the cancer is just stuck in the breast, and as far as we know, it's nowhere else, not in the nodes or out there in lung or liver. The 5-year survival is 99%. This often has my patients go, so I die year 6. No, you don't. The whole point that we doctors, the whole point behind using these 5-year survival statistics is because they most accurately reflect the treatments that you're about to receive for your cancer. If I give you 30-year survival stats, well, those women diagnosed 30 years ago don't have as high a survival as you will have, because we've developed a ton of medications in the last 3 decades, and your cancer will probably be treated with some of those newer medications. So it's really like terrifying to give you those stats, right? Because it's like, in 1800, your chance of getting so
Right.
Right. So this 5-year is a more relevant to you stat. And so don't panic that we secretly know you're going to die year 6 and just don't want to tell you the 6-year survival rate. Okay. 95% of breast cancer happens in women who are over 40. Let that one sink in a little bit, because I always get asked, gee, it feels like breast cancer is such an epidemic these days and everybody's getting younger and younger, aren't they? And I kind of like, I'm a yes person. So I kind of want to go like, yeah, but actually no. So yeah, I know 3 facts. Okay. So the opposite of this fact is that only 5% of all breast cancer, and these are 2022 stats, occurs in women who are under 40. Not to minimize that if you're under 40 with breast cancer, you're in that 5%, and that can be a difficult time, to say the least. But the second fact I know is that the median age, so half of breast cancer occurs at or after 62 years old, and half of breast cancer occurs before 62 years old. So the median age is older, not younger. And yes, you're right, in the sense that incidence has been on a very slow rise since 2004, and since 2012, it's reaching a 0.3% per year increase. So honestly, it's nothing that your computer or brain would recognize as a true increase. But for women under 50, it's been rock stable since 1985. So it's back there with headbands and spandex. It hasn't changed. And I still look good in a headband. So anyway, the point is, breast cancer is not increasing at a rate in younger people such that you would ever notice. However, this has been completely increasing since the 1990s. And that is the acceptance, not even then, I don't know why I said that, from like, I would say 2010 and beyond. Now, all of a sudden, it is no longer taboo to have your favorite hosts on talk show television boldly come forward with their own cancer journeys and stories. They're normalizing the conversation around things like gene mutations, and they're allowing people like me airtime to talk about it and to educate. So it seems more prevalent. And the other thing is, think about when you joined Facebook. What year was it? I know for a fact, because I was sitting on the couch pregnant. It was 2000, the very beginning of 2009 when I joined Facebook.
Man, that was late too.
I'm a late joiner?
Yeah. I think I got on there like 2001, 2002, something like that.
What? You're like the 3rd person ever on it? Anyway, that's cool. That's cool. You're ahead of the curve. Yeah, no, it was 2008, actually. Now I remember. But anyway, it doesn't matter that I'm so far behind you. I'm still ahead of the curve. When people answer this question for themselves, it will be after that. And so the point is that a mere 15 years ago, you never, ever knew that your cousin's friend's daughter at 22 years old had breast cancer. So this idea that it's so much more prevalent and happening younger is partly just because you have more information access that you never had before. Okay, moving on. I'm going to talk about some risk factors that you cannot change, not to freak you out, but to educate you and incentivize you to take more control over the things over which you have control. Okay, so the first thing you can't change, and who would want to, is being female. So you may know that 1 in 8 women gets breast cancer. If this were 1970, it would have been 1 in 11. So look how far we've come in 50 years. We've gone from 1 in 11 to 1 in 8 women gets breast cancer. Men, we mentioned already that you do get breast cancer, but it's a rate at 1.3 in 100,000. Far cry from 1 in 8. So about 12.8% of women will be diagnosed with invasive breast cancer in their lifetime, and 1 in 39, or 3% of all women, will die from breast cancer in the US. However, that 12.8% risk isn't like every morning when you wake up, right? Because we all have it by like Hanukkah or Christmas. Basically, that number is pulled out across every decade of life and has its peak moments. So let me show this to you. If your current age is 20, your risk of getting breast cancer in the next 10 years, so between 20 and 30, is 1 in 1,479 20-somethings. You see, that's no 1 in 8. But if you go on and on, let's just do it. Okay, because you're all thinking, wait, where's my age? Okay, so 20 to 30 is 1 in 1,479. 30 to 40 years old, 1 in 209, 30-somethings. 40 to 50 years old, 1 in 65. 50 to 60 years old, 1 in 42. 60 to 70 years old, 1 in 28. 70 to 80 years old, ding, ding, ding. This is the highest risk decade in which to get breast cancer. It's 1 in 25. 80 to 90 years old, 1 in 33. And 90 to 100 is never in any of these tables because they don't expect anyone to be a centenarian. And I object. I think we should all go plant-based and all outlive these tables and be like, hey, where's my decade? All right, so here's what I want to say. When you add up all of these 1-ins, that's where you land with a lifetime tally risk of 1 in 8, which equals 12.8%.
All right. So at the risk of jumping ahead here, Dr. Funk, what is going on in the body between the ages of 50 to 80 where that risk really jumps up? And then really, I mean, you just said 1 in 25 for the 70s. I mean, what's going on there that causes those numbers to climb like that, the risk to climb?
Really, you've just lived long enough now that the cumulative damage of your DNA mutations is getting outpaced by the acceleration of that damage, right? So when you're younger, you have more cellular immunity, more defenses against mutation, and you have less cumulative exposure to, like, kind of an easier one for people to understand is UV damage to the skin, so you get melanoma, right? You don't have that much exposure to the sun when you're 10 years old or even 30 as compared to 80, where you then end up with that cigarette paper skin and you just knock into something and your grandma has that huge bruise on her arm or cuts her. Like, things change as you age, your cells are aging, your telomeres are getting shorter, and your ability to rejuvenate and repair on a cellular level is getting less functional. So your cancer risk is going up.
Gotcha. All right. Asked and answered.
Yes. Family history. Why are we doctors so interested in family history? Well, let's answer this question. What percentage of women with breast cancer have at least one first-degree relative with breast cancer? Is it 13, 45, so almost half of you, 61%, 81%, like basically everybody because it runs in the family? No. Overall, only 13% of women diagnosed with breast cancer have a single first-degree relative with it, and about 20% have any relative at all. So that means 80 to 90, 80 to 87% of women diagnosed with breast cancer don't have a single person on either side of the family tree. So it's not really about genetics unless it's about genetics. So what percentage of women diagnosed with breast cancer actually do have an inherited genetic mutation, such as BRCA or CHEK2 or PALB2 that they got from mom and dad? 5 to 10%, 30 to 40, 60 to 70, 80 to 90. So really, I probably should have done the slides the other way, because if you were paying attention, you should know that most people with cancer don't have a family history of it, and these genes are very unforgiving, and when they exist, you usually see cancer generation after generation after generation devastated by these gene mutations. Thankfully, it's only 5 to 10% of all women diagnosed with breast cancer who can blame it on their genes. And what is that risk really? It can be crazy high, to be honest. So for example, BRCA gene mutations, if you carry a BRCA1 mutation, your risk of getting breast cancer is up to 87% lifetime. Like, it's almost a question of just, if not now, then when. In that same time frame, by age 70, the overall risk is only 8% in the normal population. Similarly, the ovarian cancer risk, which is a highly fatal cancer to get, is 44% up to age 70 versus population less than 1%. So we get really serious when you do have a gene mutation, and I'd like for you to consider whether or not it's worth testing for one. So here are your big red flags. These are the criterion that insurance recognizes and generally covers, because if you have any of these bullet points that I'll talk through, you do have a 10% or higher risk of having a gene mutation, and it would behoove you to find out. Some people are fearful of it. They just don't want to know the information. They do the head in the sand thing, or the fingers in the ears thing. And or they're worried about genetic discrimination in the workplace with insurance. I will say there's laws in place, both state and federal, that protect you against such discrimination. But we all know that laws can be changed, so I can understand that concern. However, there would be such an outcry. I don't see genetic discrimination laws going away, but we do know that laws change. So here are the red flags for a possible gene mutation. Remember, you're half your dad's DNA. I even hear doctors say, well, that doesn't matter. That was your dad's side. What? You're half your dad. So both sides of the family matter, at least the immediate and second degree relatives, but even third degree. If they're smattered in with first and second, then third degree matters. So think about all the relatives you've ever heard of. And here we go. If you have two relatives with breast cancer prior to age 50, or there's an ovarian cancer at any age, two of them, you should test. If you're Ashkenazi, then you get the Jewish special. You only need one relative having had breast cancer prior to age 50 or ovarian at any age. Why is that? Because everybody running around has a 1 in 500-ish chance of having a BRCA gene mutation just by being of Ashkenazi Eastern European descent. It is 1 in 40. So that's why we just need one relative plus the Ashkenazi. Next up, stuff that happened to you. So if you yourself had breast cancer prior to menopause, a triple negative subtype under age 60, two primaries, which does not mean a cancer that then recurred, but two totally separate breast cancers happening. If there are any men in the family tree with direct bloodline to you who have had breast cancer, a known genetic mutation carrier, again, direct bloodline to you. Pancreatic cancer is fairly rare. So if you've got that plus an ovarian and breast in the same side of the family, that is worth testing about. And then finally, just a whole lot of cancer going on, specifically these: breast, ovarian, pancreatic, prostate, colorectal, gastric, that's stomach, uterine, and melanoma. So like I said, you really want to consider testing if you fall onto this list. And if you don't fall on the list, but you just really are interested in your own genetics, there are really affordable tests now. So once Myriad lost its patents, there's a bunch of testing companies. They're all reputable. Quest, Ambry, Invitae, and Color. You can get tested, and it will go through insurance, but when it gets denied, it's $249 for the full battery of every gene that we possibly test for these days. So if you want to consider that, you can. We have an online store. It's called Pink Lotus Elements, and we have the color kit there. You can sign up for that, and it'll get mailed to your house, and then you spit in a tube and send it back. And then you can call yourself Wonder Woman, like literally. You'll be anonymous, so you can have your gene results and never worry about discrimination if that's a big fear of yours. Okay, so wait a minute. If I can't blame mom and dad, what can I blame? Well, look at these stats. So Japanese immigrants in Los Angeles and Hawaii after 1982, and then Chinese in Hawaii after 1992, developed breast cancer at rates over 100% higher than Japanese and Chinese still in the homeland. 100% higher. And at the same time, check this stat out. The change in mortality between the 1990 and 2000, in the US, the death from breast cancer dropped 15%. And in that same decade, it skyrocketed 55% in Japan. So what exactly was happening? You have to realize, look, you don't get breast cancer the way you catch a cold or COVID. You might be diagnosed on a Tuesday, but that sinister little thing was busy proliferating and dividing for hundreds of Tuesdays before you finally found out about it. Not to freak you out, but to educate you, a sugar cube worth of cancer, a 1 centimeter cancer, and the average diagnosed size in the US is 2.2 centimeters. A 1 centimeter cancer spews 3.2 million cells into the bloodstream every single day, every 24 hours. So it is an intact immune system that seeks out and destroys those rogue cells before they can land somewhere and then recruit all the things they need to become 1 cell, 2 cells, 4 cells, etc. But my point is, you have to look back then at the 70s and 80s and what was going on a good decade or two prior to this massive bump in mortality to answer the question, because it isn't that, like, you know, just something happened like they caught a cold, right? Beginning in the 1970s, the growing economics and affluence of Japan, Singapore, urban areas of China sparked all of these westernized changes in their lifestyle. So Asians started to chase our culture, and as a result, they caught our cancer. So let's talk about our culture, the American style. Instead of laboring in the field all day or in the home, tending to children, preparing fresh meals, women around the world, beginning in the 70s, more so than any decade prior, really started to enter the workforce in droves, leading sedentary lives, stressful lives that expanded their waistlines. They delayed childbearing until later years, which is a risk factor, if they had kids at all, which is called nulliparous, the lack of children, and that's a risk factor. Not breastfeeding, another risk factor. Eating leftover pizza for lunch and then sending off emails ASAP that they dash home, maybe bumpering it to home like I would. I ride my bike now, but I used to drive for 20 years, and traffic is aggravating, stressing me out ever more. And basically, I'm just in time to plop takeout on the table, pour a glass of wine, plop on the couch, and catch your favorite Netflix binge before bed. Right? Sound a little familiar?
Is it faster for you to bike home than sit in that traffic in your car? Just out of curiosity.
No, I may be dead if I did that, because there were no good bike lanes. But I moved the office, and now I bike every day.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, all right. Now, so of all these controllable, changeable risk factors that are proven in the science to affect breast cancer, we're talking diet, nutrition, alcohol, exercise, obesity, hormone replacement therapy, environmental toxicities, we're talking endocrine disruptors, and emotional stress. There is one thing that, in my heavily researched opinion, is more important than any other. And that's partly because you do it 3 to 6 times a day. You eat. Now, the key to using food to protect yourself from breast cancer is that I want you to understand you unleash weapons, for better or worse, every time you chew and swallow, that hold the power to alter the following factors inside of you. Depending on what you chew and swallow, you alter estrogen levels, growth factors, and the big daddy of them all is called IGF-1. We're going to get into that. Blood vessel formation, angio, blood vessel, genesis, birth. The birth of new blood flow to those little sinister cancer cells is an absolute requirement for every subtype of cancer in our bodies if it aspires to exist beyond the size of a tip of a ballpoint pen, angiogenesis. Free radical formation, which sets off immune system dysfunction if there's too much of it, inflammation, cell damage, and finally we arrive at it, DNA mutations that then propagate and form a cancer. Chuck, you're going to love this next slide. I actually made it for you because you loved this analogy I made one time. Can't remember which year it was. And now I thought I'd just bring it to visual life.
I'm honored.
Imagine that little cancer cell is sitting in a bathtub.
Yes.
Do you remember yet? Like,
The
oh my
rubber
gosh,
duck,
like,
yes. Yes.
So basically, what you chew and swallow becomes the fluids and cells that bathe and support and fuel cancer, or seeks to destroy it. So imagine that you're just a normal little rubber ducky, happy as can be, AKA a human cell happily humming along, when unexpectedly, in a matter of days, what was normal becomes mutated by factors like the sun's UV rays, we're talking about melanoma, cigarette smoke, a little lung cell, or carcinogenic foods, a little breast cell. Now, this mutated cell transforms into a cancer seed. Whether or not that seed takes root and blooms into a full-grown cancer capable of destroying your life depends on the bathtub water, the micro environment, the soil in which that cancer seed either flourishes or fails. So I told you that it was in 1974, the NIH funded that study that showed that we spew out 3.2 million cells into the bloodstream every 24 hours from a sugar cube sized cancer. So why, oh why, and how, oh how are we not all basically stage 4 at the moment of diagnosis with all those cells showering out there every 24 hours? It turns out that in the China study, Dr. Campbell observed that nutrition is infinitely more important in controlling cancer growth, meaning the bathtub water, than the dose of the initiating carcinogen, meaning the cancer maker. So when you eat strategically in an anti-angiogenic, anti-estrogenic, anti-inflammatory way, you take away all the bubbles. You take away the lavender salts, the little loofah pad, and now that cancer says, oh, well, it's just plain water. I guess I'll die now. Poof, apoptosis. So I want you to make sure that bathtub water is boring. And to do that, I want you to understand oxidative stress. So this is not going to become like a huge biochemical lesson, but I do want you to get that there is this battlefield inside us all day long, and it's oxidative stress. Even in plant-based eaters, there's a level of it. Okay, so free radicals, there's reactive oxygen molecules, and they are wild inside of you. Why? Because they need an electron to make themselves stable and happy. And so they steal it from any cell they can next to them, which then sets that cell off into being unhappy, and it steals from its neighbor, and so on, which is a very inflammatory, oxidizing state. So what can stop all the oxidative madness? It's the kind, gentle antioxidant. So this life-giving molecule, the antioxidant, says to the oxidant, hey, dude, here, take my electron. I'm super stable even without it. And it calms down the reactive madness. So free radicals, they're actually good in certain quantities. They help us breathe, so yay. They combat infection. And they can actually kill the cancer cells that they help cause in the first place, which is ironic, but I'll take it. So if more bad hangs around than there is good to stop it, then oxidative stress results. And when this imbalance persists day after day, year after year, your body's cells and DNA just get too beat up and sickness results. So basically, whichever organs get hit by all those free radicals the most become the disease that you get. So if it's your blood vessels, hello, heart disease. If it's your muscles, you're chronically fatigued or have fibromyalgia. If it's your intestines, you have irritable bowel and leaky gut or colon cancer. If it's your brain, I forgot what happens. Oh, dementia. Or if it's your breast, right? Breast cancer. By the way, where are all those happy, life-giving antioxidant molecules coming from? Plants, on average, carry 64 times the antioxidant power of meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Let that sink in. So that means gram per gram, in order to ingest the antioxidant content in 1 cup of blueberries, seen here, which has 57 calories and 0.3 grams of fat, you would need to eat 27.5 slices of cheese pizza. That has 7,590 calories and 323 grams of fat.
Can I just jump in here and say, like, how much this goes to dispel this myth that's been floating around? I've seen it so much recently online that plant foods contain zero nutrients, and it's impossible for the body to absorb anything beneficial from them. And the only way that you're possibly going to get anything of benefit through food is if it is derived from an animal. What you have just shown, Dr. Funk, is not only is that false, but that plant foods in this particular instance are 64 times more powerful.
Absolutely, they are. Yeah. The meat industry is no stranger to the truth. They know it before the vast majority of Americans know it, and they're already planning for your blindfolds to get removed. And once they are, do you know what they already have up their sleeve? Plant infused meat. Once you figure out, America, that plants is where it's at, let's just remind yourself, eat plants, crush cancer. Once you figure that out on a scale that hits their bottom line, aka profit margin, oh, guess what? Plants are going to be injected into the meat, and then you're going to have a whole new kind of false narrative inside your head that says, oh, okay, so now the meat's healthy. They figured out what was wrong with it and they fixed it.
Mm-hmm.
It's masterful. What can I say? I have a favorite study, and I'll say this unfortunately about every study I talk about usually because I have so many. But these are the ones that when I say this is my favorite or one of them, it's because it's so near and dear to my heart. It's one of the few studies that tipped the scales for me. Like, I can't take it anymore. The whole family's going vegan. So this was one of those studies. Oh, and I have a funny story about this. Okay, so when I was writing my book, Breast, the Owner's Manual, every single fact in there I back with research studies. There isn't a single fact that isn't referenced. So it's not really my opinion as much as it is just my compilation of all these facts that I learned. So when I was writing the book, I was sitting in the doctor's lounge waiting to get called for my operation. And I am not even exaggerating when I say I am studying this study when we'll call him John, this anesthesiologist, sits across the table from me. And John has 3 pancakes, 3 foil wrapped pats of butter, 4 strips of bacon on his plate. And I'm like, don't be that girl. Don't be that girl. Don't say anything. Just read your study. Don't say anything. And then I'm like, and I put down the laptop and I'm like, John, let me tell you about this study that I'm reading. Okay. So let me tell you about the study I was reading. This is about the oxidative stress battle inside your body, and I want to make it super relevant to you, okay? So they took these 24 hyperlipidemic men and women, so high cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and they fed them SAD, the standard American diet that Chuck, you were asking me to address. So we've got SAD for breakfast, John. We have pancakes and bacon. We have steak and eggs. We feed it to these people. I'm taking myself out of it. They did this. I had nothing to do with it. And then they check their blood LDL cholesterol levels hourly after that SAD meal. This is a measure of oxidative stress inside your body. And it went up, up, up till 180 minutes later, 3 hours later, it's time for lunch. Hamburger and fries. Let's measure it. Up, up, up. And now it's dinner time. And this person is going to bed with fewer antioxidants than when they woke up. Hence that, how many decades do you think your body's going to take the hammering of oxidative stress before it just says, I'm out, done, thanks for the ride. All right, now here's the magic. Same people, next day, same SAD meal, one change. A cup of strawberries. Now we have the pancakes and bacon and a cup of strawberries. And the LDL cholesterol goes down below baseline. Here's lunch. Same hamburger and fries with a cup of strawberries. And the strawberries are like, really? A hamburger? You don't think I can continue the magic, but I will get you back to baseline. Okay. Whew. Mind blown. Whoa. Are you understanding that? That literally just a cup of strawberries, all those phytochemicals, those plant-based nutrients can get released from your food into your bloodstream, neutralize the chaos caused by that pancakes and bacon. But what if, what if it were Chuck's breakfast? What if it were your half a cup of oatmeal, maybe with some soy milk and some steel cut oats, right? Plus the berries and cinnamon and a little flax. Wah! Then the basic stress that happens from that healthy meal would be over, like poof. And now, oh, what are all these phytochemicals going to do all day, or at least for the next 3 hours? They're actually going to course through your veins, saturating other cells and reversing disease that's there. Other points of oxidative stress that have nothing to do with the meal you just ate because it was so healthy. You're going to start melting plaque away, melting fat away. You're going to see, wait, that deranged cancer cell? We have no interest in you. Whoop! Let's kill you. Let's stoke your immune system to seek and destroy cancer cells. Basically, you're going to take away the lavender salts and the fun bubbles, right? Poof, apoptosis. Oh, back to John. So John, I tell him this story, and I just want to educate you because this is 2017, and this is an excellent anesthesiologist, super smart guy, who says to me in response, so do you think that what I eat can affect cancer? And I said, yes. And it has now been 5 years, and I am not lying to you. I see John all the time, and I see him often eating. And whenever he's eating, It's still the pancakes and bacon, but guess what he always, always has beside it?
Strawberries.
A cup of strawberries. And I'm like, hey, John, blueberries are actually even more potent. You can mix it up.
Wow.
I am not lying. The guy is a strawberry king.
Wow, that's great, man. You talk about splitting the difference. I mean, like I'm looking at that chart and you're right. I can see why you got so excited by this. I mean, you're talking about essentially eating, not essentially, but eating the exact same thing, except for adding the strawberries. And the difference there is just amazing.
It really is. So I call it a strategic side dish. Um, I was on Rachel Ray the other day, and we were talking about eating whole food plant-based. We were talking about the four-pronged approach to beating breast cancer, and she was saying, we were saying you don't necessarily have to not eat the chicken, and I was like, absolutely, it's all about the strategic side dish. If you have a huge salad there or a bunch of greens. Now, most people know I am whole food, plant-based all the way, like ride or die, baby, but not everybody's going to make that turn like that. And so the thing is transitioning, and you have to, in my opinion, be accepting of strides forward. If it's a baby step, fine. If it's a giant leap, awesome. But to me, just teaching someone whose plate was going to be a big steak or a chicken breast with French fries, and I don't know what else they put there. What else do you put? That's crappy. Something else crappy. In replacing that with this health food that can be an antioxidant inside your body is critical. And it's a very critical educational transformation that's going to only lead to true, like, hey, let's try a meatless Monday. Let's move that on to be Thursdays also. Like, you have to meet people where they are and encourage them in the changes that they're willing to make, and not be all or none, in my opinion.
Yeah, but to that notion, you're talking about a small change, eating a cup of strawberries, and a big difference, right? Not that complete overhaul. And for people who are skeptical and they just want to dip their toe in the water, that can still lead to that immense, immense, immense benefit. So I like that approach a lot.
Cool. Let's do it together.
Yeah.
Change the world. All right. So if you really want to defeat cancer, then I want you to eat like you mean it. These phytonutrients, they equal plant warfare. So you just chew and swallow that broccoli or those berries, or you sprinkle some turmeric on a rice dish, and boom, you're releasing chemicals. Curcumin. If you drink green tea, you've got the epigallocatechin gallate, or EGCG. If you chomp on the skin of red grapes or have a little red wine, you're releasing resveratrol, potent antioxidant. Flax seeds and avocado, omega-3 fatty acids. Our berries have procyanidins. Genistein is found in soy, lycopene in tomatoes, anthocyanidins in apples, limonene. You'd think I was going to say in lemons. It's in oranges. It's also in lemons. It's just higher in oranges. So, right? Lemon. All right, whatever. Citrus. So, yuck. All right. So, my point here is that these chemicals, they do all the fighting for you. All you have to do is chew and swallow the right foods. It's pretty miraculous. All right, peeps, let's meet frenemy number one, insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1. It has one mission in life, and that is to tell everybody to grow, grow, grow. This critical growth promoter, it works the miracle of children becoming adults, right? But we only get so tall and our hands only get so big. So what is IGF-1 doing for the rest of our adult lives? Surprising to some of you, we turn over 50 billion cells a day, so they need replacing. And as a growth promoter, guess who replaces them? So IGF-1 helps post-exercise muscles repair, and it helps brain cells that need protecting. But once these tasks are complete, if there's excess IGF-1 screaming at cells to grow, then grow they will into cancer, into metastases, into the liver, into the lung, into the bone, into the brain. Somebody better stop that IGF-1 down, right? Stomp it down, I meant. Turns out you're that someone. Your brain tells your liver how much IGF-1 to produce for the day's daily activities. And it is predominantly in response to eating animal protein and animal protein alone, meat, dairy, and eggs, that stimulates an excessive amount of that IGF-1. Check this out. over 6,000 adults over the age of 50 were followed for 18 years. And those ages 50 to 65 years old, higher animal protein levels. Catch that, just higher versus lower protein. So we're not putting some vegans into the mix. 430% increase in cancer death, and a 7,300%, that's 74 times the amount of type 2 diabetes. So this is, again, compared to the low protein group. And IGF-1 emerged as an important moderator of the association between protein consumption and mortality, since wherever the protein went, IGF-1 levels were sure to follow, just like Mary and her little lamb, which would actually happen even more so if Mary ate her lamb. All right, so notably, no such elevations in risk happened when proteins were derived from plants, only animals. If you could not respond to IGF-1 at all, you would have Laron syndrome, and you would be very short. You would have medical dwarfism, which makes sense because you wouldn't have anyone screaming at you to grow. But guess what else you wouldn't have? That's my drum roll on the desk. Cancer. Not one person with IGF-1 deficiency in the history of the world has ever gotten breast cancer. And in fact, only one person with Laron syndrome has ever gotten any type of cancer. In 2017, it was a stage 1 ovarian cancer, and she's still alive. So that's astounding. What else is astounding? No one in the history of the world with IGF-1 deficiency ever gets type 2 diabetes. Astounding again. So clearly, IGF-1 contributes substantially to the causation of all cancer and diabetes. It creates a microenvironment. It's in that bathtub that's been proven conducive to breast cancer, and it increases breast cancer's invasiveness. A study showed that women with high circulating IGF-1 levels had 38% more estrogen-driven cancer than those with low levels. Okay, this is my favorite study. So here we go. When a woman comes to me and she's like, Doc, that was a beautiful spiel, but I'm like 68 years old, I'm fat, now I have breast cancer. So it's too late for me. Like, I can't make this change because it's too late to intervene and see results. And that's when I'm like, oh no, sister, it is not too late. Let me tell you about a study. So I can tell you how to lower your IGF-1 and make more of the IGF-1 binding protein, which is like a body snatcher that retires IGF-1 from circulation. Just do what a group of 38 obese women did following this Pritikin plan, which is a low-fat, high-fiber diet and whole food plant-based with daily exercise classes for 30 to 60 minutes a day. Oh, wait, before you 38 ladies go, let me just check some blood markers, if you don't mind. I'm gonna just look at a few things like your insulin and your estrogen levels. And I'm gonna take a little bit of your blood and I'm gonna drip it onto 3 different human breast cancer cell lines on a Petri dish and see what happens. Oh, some robust growth happening there from your blood. Okay, ladies, off you go for 12 years, for 12 months. No, 12 weeks. Oh, it was just 12 days. 12 days of following the Pritikin plan, and they come back. Guess what? IGF-1, estradiol, both with and without HRT, levels plummeted, and insulin all reduced between 19 and 37% from baseline, and the IGF-1 binding protein increased by 32%. All with statistically significant p-values, in case you have that statistical mind, p less than 0.05. But now let's go back to the Petri farm. Let me get some new blood. Let's get 3 fresh Petri dishes with 3 different breast cancer cell lines. And this time, when we drip the blood, breast cancer cells dramatically slow and start exploding, apoptosis. From less than 2 weeks, it is not too late for you, sister.
Wow.
That's why I said it was one of my favorites. It was one of the big ones that turned me. Just I've seen enough now. I always get straight A's my whole life, and the extra credit too. People will be like, how did you get 105 on that test? I'm like, well, you don't answer anything wrong and you do the extra credit. Okay, so once I figured that out about food, I was like, Vegan, baby. All right, so processed meat. Some might call processed meat by friendly names, right? Like sausage, hot dog, bacon. But the IARC, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, calls them potentially deadly. In 2015, 22 scientists from 10 countries met at the IARC in Lyon, France, to answer two questions. I'll just make it a run on. Are red meat and processed meats bad for your health? So the working group assessed over 800 epidemiologic studies, and they looked into cancer and red or processed meat consumption in countries from several continents with diverse ethnicities and diets. And their conclusion was a resounding highest warning level possible to the consumption of all processed meat, labeling it flat out carcinogenic to humans, on par with smoking and asbestos and plutonium. And they classified red meat as probably carcinogenic to humans. So this caused me to quickly Google processed meat. Yeah, I'm a grown adult, but I was just like, please don't say it isn't so. Oh no, yeah. My organic sliced turkey breast that I got from the deli section is processed meat, but it's organic and it's lean meat turkey. And so I will divert this slideshow for a second to tell you my story. This was my come to kale moment. And what happened was I was writing the book that I already told you about, that I always had to be right because I didn't want to spread falsehood, and because I knew the book would have spears thrown at it and I needed it to be spirit proof because I grew up as a Viking, and bullets. I think bullets would fly and my book should be bulletproof. That might be more appropriate analogy. But the point is, I needed also just to be right. It's in my nature and it makes me delightful to be married to. So this particular day, people are like, how did you write this whole book? And you had this transformation and you did it all. And like, I actually wrote the whole book in like 6 months, but I'm like, I didn't parent. That's how I wrote the book. Like I still had to work and make money and be a doctor. So yeah, I have no idea what happened in second grade. First day of third grade, though, I took the boys to school. I took the morning off like a good mom, and I was walking them into school, and this mom comes up to me. She's like, oh, who was Justin's teacher last year? I think he was with my Sally. And I was like, I don't know. I literally like, whoop, all of second grade. However, every once in a while, I would be like, back then it was so funny. I'd be writing in the corner of my room. I had this little like desk and at a window, and I would just type on my tiny MacBook this whole book. And I would take Friday off. And so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I would write nonstop for like 16 hours a day. And that's how the book came to be. But the kids were of an age back then, was at 7 years old, that they would just come up to where my room was, lie on the ground, just be like, Mom, I'm bored. Like it was just like this chaos in the background of writing the book. Anyway, this one morning they were going to camp on Friday. And so I run downstairs and I'm like, I'm going to be a good parent for a second. And I'm going to make their lunches. And I am a product of the 80s. So I graduated high school in 1987, which means that I am a product of carb fear. So bread, pasta, rice, and potatoes, just look at that stuff and it makes you fat, right? So like any loving mother, I was passing my carb fear on to my children. In other words, I was making sandwiches without bread. So what I did was I took an organic, I'm saying this out loud, organic processed meat slice. It was turkey. It gets better. I put a mozzarella stick in it. And then I put it on a big bed of lettuce and rolled it up. I could have just been rolling up cigarettes, but I didn't know it. And I put it in their lunch boxes with some fruit, and off they went to camp. And I am not lying when I say I went back up to my little corner to start writing. And that's when I came across the IARC ruling.
Oh,
I'd never read it before.
Of all the days. This
was the day. I was in a complete panic. I cleared it with Andy. And then when I heard their little feet coming through the door, I was so grateful they're still alive. Run downstairs. Boys, come here. They're like, what, Mom? Come to the fridge. And with tremendous panache, I swing open the refrigerator door and I say, boys, we're going vegan. And they were like, yeah, what is vegan? That was it. We literally cleared out the fridge. I had 4 paper bags filled to the brim with like the salmon we were going to barbecue for dinner, my cheese therapy drawer with my 5-year-age Gouda, my Manchego and Brie, and all of it just went in these bags. And I, to be honest, drove 1 mile to my 90-year-old parents' house and said, here, it's too late for you. You know that that's not true. But my mother would never speak to me again if she knew I had thrown away all of that perfectly good carcinogenic food. So, they grew up in the Depression. They really would have lost it. So they were going to buy it anyway. I just saved them hundreds of dollars. Okay.
Were your kids at that young age able to grasp like what it then meant to be vegan and the reasons behind it? Did you try to explain that to them?
I did. So they were a couple days past 8. They had just had their birthday like 3 days earlier. And that night, which was a huge thing, because literally I did not spend a second, either I was working or writing that book or maybe sleeping. But this night, after springing that on them, we sat down and watched What the Health. And at 8 years old, they got it. They got it so rapidly that this is how it transpired. I allowed a cheat day. Even for myself, I was like, okay, this is a little extreme. Like, let's, we're doing this and this is why. And What the Health helped it to explain that. But, once a week, you can pick a day. And if you want pizza or ice cream, or, you just let me know if you want chicken or barbecued salmon. I was thinking I want my sushi back. And so that week went by. They were so good. They came back from camp the next day. And I was like, how'd it go? What'd you eat? And they're like, nothing. We had fruit and chips. And I'm like, well, they have veggie burgers, don't they? No, Mom, they have cheese inside them. And I was like, you asked? They were like, duh. Like, I was blown away that it wasn't a slice of cheese on top. They were like, are these made with cheese inside? And
yeah, score one for your kids.
I
That's
know.
impressive.
It's crazy impressive. So what's even more impressive is that they could pick their own cheat day. It didn't have to be like family cheat day or whatever. And they went to a birthday party of all things, but it was summer. And then they came home and I said, what happened? Did you guys have pizza or what was it there? And they're like, well, we looked at it, but we don't understand why would we have a cheat day?
I love your kids. I absolutely adore your kids.
Thank you. I mean, it's just in their DNA. Like, I can't even take credit. They blew me away with that. They not only understood the negative effects on their bodies, like they'll come home from school and be like, Mom, so-and-so has Lunchables every day. She's so going to get diabetes.
Mm.
Then you get the animal cruelty and the climate change and the carbon footprint. They get it all. And they're full on in. Like, they can do what they want when they're adults, but there's no sign of it stopping. I mean, it's really one of the sweetest moments. One of the cutest things that really tugged at my heart was only about 6 weeks into it. We went to Whole Foods, and at that supermarket, they have this like ode to cheese. It's like the center of the market, and it's just like piles and piles. It would have been my like my happy place in days of yore. But in this particular moment, I was off somewhere else, and Justin full on like pulling me. He's like leaning sideways. Mom, 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 mom. Okay, you've got to go when they do that. So he pulls me over to the cheese, and he goes, Mom, look. And I look, and I'm like, I'm not getting it. And he leans over, and he goes, Mom, they don't know. It like just broke my heart. Like,
oh.
They don't know. They don't know how bad it is. And that's exactly it. And guess who else doesn't know? Your doctor doesn't know. Your doctor had a chicken sandwich for lunch and is having steak or a hamburger for dinner. And he's going to wake up and have eggs in the morning, or it could be a she. So they don't know. But now you know. So what are you going to do about it?
Let me ask you this though. We had a leftover question when we did the live Q&A from somebody by the name of Elaine, and Elaine was explaining how they are whole food plant-based through and through, except they do have that cheat day. She said every 2 months she'll indulge in something like crab cakes. The science, I mean, let's try to be honest here, and the science, what does that show as far as somebody who has that more flexitarian diet as opposed to a strict plant-based whole food diet?
So it's again compared to what? The flexitarian will have more cancer and higher cancer mortality than the full plant-based eater. but they will have dramatically less cancer and cancer mortality than the red meat and processed meat consumer.
Mm.
Right? And as far as Elaine goes, your cells are never going to notice a couple bites of something animal based every 2 months if you're truly plant based. But get this, this is a fun study and it's hot off the presses. It came out in June 2022. They followed just over 65,000 women. I might be talking about this, but anyway, I'll talk about it now. 65,000 women for, get this, 21 years. And they found that those who followed a whole food plant based diet, a healthy one. This is the whole point. Everybody was whole food plant based, but they divided them into healthy and unhealthy. So unhealthy, of course, is going to be higher saturated fat and processed and highly refined foods, tons of sugar. But still, everybody's plant based. And so the healthy eaters had dramatically, statistically significant less breast cancer, but the unhealthy plant based eaters had 20% more breast cancer. Interesting, right? So it gets a little overwhelming if you're still that woman parking the kids at McDonald's for dinner on Friday nights, because that's a fun place. That's a huge stretch. Like you're telling me to eat plants, and now you got to tell me, like, within the world of plants, and that's where we get, I think, a little too divisive with the oils and the salts. Although, yes, it's true. Oil's inflammatory and salt raises blood pressure, and we can't let best be the enemy of better when someone's over here at bad. Like, if I can get bad to good and from good to better, and if that's where they park it for the rest of their lives, it's so much better than staying where it was bad.
For sure. I was just having that conversation recently on the show with Dr. Will Bolsowitz, because somebody Will is my guy, but somebody had written in to me and was like, Chuck, you're a fraud because you eat kimchi and kimchi has sodium. And I thought that, one, like, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, until I thought, like, well, that's just laughable because of exactly what it was, Dr. Funk, you just said. Better than what?
Then your
Kimchi is
300-pound self?
Yeah, kimchi is better than the 10,000 milligrams of sodium I was getting every single time I went to Taco Bell. Legitimately, 10,000 milligrams every single time I went there. My order never changed. So am I a fraud because I eat kimchi that's got a little bit of sodium in it? Is not that 10,000 milligrams? I don't know. Like, come on,
Right.
people. Little common sense.
Yeah. Again, don't let best be the enemy of better. All right. So, so the processed meat thing. 193 plus thousand postmenopausal women in this study were followed 9.4 years, and there was a 25% increase in breast cancer in red and processed meat consumers. So I'm just trying to show that there is data to back up the IARC ruling when it comes specifically to eating these foods and getting breast cancer or dying from it. But here's an interesting one that may change some eating habits. I remember I lectured about this before I was plant-based, because I was always interested in diet and lifestyle, but I didn't delve deeply enough. Like, it really required having to write this book and being so intense about it to uncover all the nutritional science. But this is a stat, it's old, 1998. So I would go lecture. I was the director of patient education back in my early career at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. And these lectures were, like, very poorly attended. It was like by 5 old ladies who were hardly listening. And so I tried to spice it up a bit, because it used to be about breast cancer. And as I mentioned already, people don't really care unless they have it. So I started to talk about what you can do. And I had come across this study. And so I was teaching people, you probably want to avoid very well done meat, because the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and the heterocyclic amines that form from high heat cooking actually link to breast cancer. How much higher? 54% higher for hamburger consumers, 64% more breast cancer for bacon eaters, 121% for beefsteak eaters. And then for women who eat all 3 of these meats well done, have a 362% higher risk than women who are plant-based? No, than women who choose the same meats, rare or medium done. Think about if the comparison had been to the vegetarian or vegan. This is incredible to me to think that, right? Just the well doneness.
Wow.
So at some point, some people listening to us might be like, yeah, but what about keto? What about paleo? What about Atkins? What about South Beach? Because I love myself some meat. And hey, I became keto and I totally lost 25 pounds and I dropped using a bunch of my insulin because I'm diabetic. And what do I think about that? Well, first of all, let me just tell you something very current. This study is from August 2022. Plant-based and ketogenic diets as diverging paths to address cancer, a review. So this review suggests that the collective available evidence strongly supports plant-enriched diets versus ketogenic for the reduction of cancer risk. And it also improves metabolic disorders in breast cancer survivors. So this study was specifically looking at recurrence and mortality risk in a keto versus plant-based diet in breast cancer survivors. So this supports eating plant-based, but let's get a little bit more into the woods on like, but really I want to understand, because we do have to answer the questions. That it is true that when you go keto, you can lose weight and your diabetes can improve and even cholesterol levels can seem to improve. So what's up with that and why isn't that a good way to eat? So we're not going to get into the fact that eating meat and dairy leads to horrific animal cruelty and water pollution and water scarcity and pesticide and antibiotic overuse and the emergence of antibiotic resistant superbugs. I'm not going to talk about how the EPA says that Big Aggie accounts for 24% of all greenhouse gas emissions, which is more than all transportation sources combined, and 90% of deforestation, which releases like 50 billion tons of carbon into the sky every day, leading in total and not every day, leading to climate change, biodiversity loss, ocean dead zones, planet destruction. I'm not talking about any of the catastrophic natural disasters that result therefrom, like heat waves and floods and wildfires and melting ice caps. And irony upon irony, exacerbation of world hunger. Well, you see, this all kind of culminates in the end of life on this planet. You wondering? So 82% of starving children live where livestock consume the food instead of the kids, and then Westerners consume the livestock. So that's why eating animals leads to human starvation. But I'm not going to say that any of that is a reason to avoid low-carb, meat-centric diets like keto. I'm just going to give you one reason. 3 letters, actually. LAD, left anterior descending, otherwise known as the widowmaker. This is the main artery coming down and over your heart, giving it the blood supply it needs to keep on pumping. So you need to remember that, like I said, it's true that high protein, low carb diets generally can result in weight loss, but it's largely water weight and loss of lean mass. And yes, keto can lower triglycerides and blood pressure and increase your HDL. But here's the thing, what you really want to measure is a coronary calcium score, not just these external things like the blood pressure and the triglyceride level. You need to see how much plaque has built up on the arteries in real time. And yes, keto can lower blood glucose, but you know what you need to tell the truth of diabetes? It's not a hemoglobin A1C score, which is what people get and then claim that keto is helping their diabetes. You need an oral glucose tolerance test. You need to guzzle down some liquid sugar and then prove to me that your insulin doesn't spike from that. So you've got to do all this actually in like 10,000 people who've been keto for say like 10 years. And then you have to compare them to 10,000 more who have been plant-based for 10 years. That's how you arrive at randomized controlled trials. And we don't have that. And we're probably never going to have that. And the keto studies that we do have that make bold claims about reversing illness, really look at them. They have a follow-up of weeks and at most to months. There is no high carb plant-based comparison group in them. And they're not long-term and they're not large volumes. So until we have them, well, they may never be done, probably never. Also, ketogenic eating is hard to sustain long-term because you don't poop. Other reasons. But okay, so back to the widowmaker. Some of you probably know that you're looking at a photo from the landmark 1990 work of Dr. Dean Ornish in the Lifestyle Heart Trial, where he took all of these 28 cardiac patients and assigned them to either an experimental group, which was low-fat vegetarian, stop smoking, less stress, and try to exercise, versus the other group in care as usual, right? Just, oh wait, before you guys go, let's do some quantitative coronary angiography. And that's what you're looking at. So we're going to inject some dye into your vein, and we're going to take a picture of what that dye does when it comes to the heart vessels. And there's so much plaque right here, it's barely getting by. And it just needs like one more hamburger before, boom, that sucker is totally occluded. And without its blood supply down here, the main ventricle of the heart is not going to be able to, it's called a heart attack and sudden death. Okay, so off they go, right? We've got our group eating more vegetarian and trying to exercise. They go away for a year and they all come back, and artery wide open. No medications, no surgery, just kale. Okay, not just kale, but plant-based eating and some diet and some lifestyle behavioral change. You know, I highlighted that this trial happened in 1990 because I went to medical school in 1992, and I didn't hear a single peep about this complete game changer until I was writing the book in 2017. So 2 years after we found out that not pills and procedures, but plant-based eating could reverse the #1 killer of people on the planet, I didn't hear anything about it. So I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Was it published in Green Leafy magazine? Oh, no, it was in the Lancet, like the most reputable medical journal on the planet. So then I thought, well, he must have lied. That's why no one talks about it. Oh, wait, but then there's this guy. So Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, I call him Essie. I went to his house. That's his house. We're standing in the kitchen, and there were all these family members around, and I just like rolled on in, and I was like, hi. And I thought they would notice me. I'm like, I'm gonna live here forever because I love that Esselstyn family. They are all so amazing and wonderful. Rip and Jane and Anne. Okay, back to this guy with the audacious title of his book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. Oh, let me go back to it. So this book, if you don't know it, is an astounding book because it documents a 20-year plus nutritional study on 200 cardiac cripples. It is the longest study of its kind ever done. And he, just like Ornish, once again showed that plants deliver the angiographic proof of like blood vessel to bam, artery wide open. So, you know, as Dr. Michael Greger likes to point out, there is only one diet in the history of the world that has been scientifically proven to slow, stop, and even reverse the #1 killer of you and everyone you love. And it's powerful, right? And it not only reverses heart disease, but it's also been proven to prevent or slow or stop and even reverse other killers, right? Stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, obesity, other cancers besides breast. So honestly, when bacon and bulletproof coffee can do all of that, then our keto loving patients or friends are going to have my attention. But until then, which frankly is going to be never, I'm sticking with the kale. I usually when I'm doing like a live presentation and I've gone through much of what we've talked about, I'm chatting with a carnivorous audience, right? And I think to myself, like literally, I'm all like at this point, like, oh, what's that sound? Ding, ding. Oh, it must be the sound of plant-based converts getting their vegan wings. It happens every time. I'm all like, and then suddenly, ooh, Doc, I have a question. Yes, what is your question? And it is, but chicken is okay, right? No, it's not. So look at this study. 35,000 plus women are followed for 8 years, 1,850 subsequent breast cancers develop. And now, here we got it. Compared to no meat consumers, eating red meat increased that breast cancer risk by 41%. Processed meat consumption increased breast cancer risk by 39%. And chicken, there it is, increased it by 22%.
Wow.
So, no to chicken, but are you serious? Is fish okay? I get that every time. Wait, dairy's okay, right? You're not talking about butter, are you? Or eggs that you're not, check out our podcast from before. Was it last year, Chuck? Last year we did a lot of fun. Maybe 2020, but just check out me and Chuck. I do a deep dive into dairy. I do a deep dive with slides into eggs. Like, I really did talk about all of this before. So if you want to get into the weeds with it, there's some beautiful podcasts that Chuck did with me. But I'll just give you this one overarching study that answers the fish and dairy and egg question. Sort of. I mean, no one study is going to like be the be all end all for people, but this is a biggie. The Adventist Health 2 study followed 69,000 people for just 4 years, and eating meat was categorized as eating meat eating was categorized as eating meat, about half of them, 33,000 plus, versus vegetarian, 35,000. And in that just 4-year period, almost 3,000 cancers developed, 5.1% in men, 3.8% in women. This is a really cool study. So relative to the meat eating group, the vegetarian group had 24% less cancers. But here's the interesting part. They subdivide it. Eating is now subcategorized in the vegetarian group as being vegan. We had 4,922 of them. No meat, dairy, or eggs. Pescatarian, along the lines of your prior question, Chuck, that someone had asked in the live Q&A. Pescatarian eating, we had 7,000 of them, but we had 20,000. This is what I typically think when I think vegetarian, is a lacto-ovo vegetarian. And then a sometimes meat, semi-vegetarian, 4,000 people. Now, when we do the subdivision, vegans are the only subgroup to show a statistically significant 34% drop in breast and gynecologic cancers relative to meat eaters. So what you're seeing is that the addition of fish, the addition of a little milk and cheese or eggs, the addition of an occasional salmon fillet of what is that called? Steak, steak fillet. Occasional, just basically negates the anti-cancer properties of the food. So that's the answer to fish and dairy and eggs. I'm going to provide a little neat and tidy checklist for you guys for when people are like, but what about, because I get that all day long. So I have a thing that I go through in my head. So what about fish, or what about dairy? First of all, there's a cellular response to eating animal protein and animal saturated fat that your body can't help but make. So it could care less how happy and sustainably raised that beef patty was before it was beheaded. If it was roaming free and eating fresh grass without growth promoters shoved under their skin, then your body still doesn't care. It's going to elevate estrogen, it's going to elevate IGF-1, it's going to create angiogenesis, and it's going to get inflamed. Next thing is what's naturally in that meat or milk. So saturated and trans fats, cholesterol, heme iron, and nitroso compounds. So you're going to chew and swallow that stuff down. Number 3, the carcinogens from cooking. We went over the external polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, the heterocyclic amines, and how increased that cancer risk is just from that burnt, well-grilled meat. But it turns out that you make those same carcinogenic compounds, the HCAs, et cetera, in a 30-minute cooked chicken breast in the oven. It just isn't as high of a quantity, but it's all still there. So you also have nitrosamines in your processed meats, FIP, TMAO, bad stuff. Number 4, there's contaminants and additives in the meat. So maybe not in the organic version, but most meat is conventionally raised. Like 94% of all beef patties come from conventionally raised cattle, which means they have Zeranol shoved behind their ear, which is the world's most potent synthetic estrogen. That's what that is. It's a growth promoter that literally has 100,000% more estrogen mimicking abilities than the BPA in plastic. So that's when I laugh to myself when people like go to In-N-Out Burger, but they're like, oh no, I'm not drinking that from that plastic water bottle that was in the sun. They just don't know the difference between the Zeranol problem in their beef and the BPA in the plastic in their water bottle. But anyway, back to contaminants and additives in the meat that you're swallowing down include the Zeranol I mentioned, but then so the main things for growth promotion are estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, which has to help you think about hormone replacement therapy a little bit. Like if they're giving all of these actual estrogens to cattle to make them big and fat fast, what do you think an excessive amount is doing to you? Then there's pesticides and herbicides and antibiotics and dioxins and PCBs, microplastics in your fish. So you're swallowing the stuff down. And finally, what's not in the meat? Like, what are we missing? Certain vitamins. There's no C, A, D, E, and K. You're missing certain minerals like calcium, potassium, boron, manganese. Antioxidants, we already saw there's 64 times the antioxidant content in plants versus animals. So you really aren't getting much, if any, because you're not going to have, what was it now, 27 slices of pizza. There are no phytonutrients because until the meat industry injects them, like we talked about, plant-based nutrients are missing from meat. There's no water, and my personal favorite, there is no fiber. So this then leads to the next question: where do I get my protein? And the answer is you need about 0.36 grams of protein per pound. It's about 50 grams of protein a day if you're under 65, and I like to see more like 65 grams if you're over 65. But it's really easy to get, and as long as you're not gluten, if you don't have celiac, which 1% of people do, you can have seitan. Seitan is packed with protein, a third of a cup, and it's like this chewy, meaty. If you've never had it, check it out. 21 grams of protein in a third a cup, so you're almost halfway to your goal. Soy, tempeh, tofu, edamame, just a half cup, has 20 grams of protein. Lentils, a cup, 18 grams. Soy milk, by the way, has like 8 grams of protein, so not as much per cup. Beans, 15 grams of protein. Nuts and nut butters and seeds, 7 to 10 grams. Peas, 8 grams. Quinoa, 7 to 9 grams. Quinoa and soy are whole, complete proteins. They've got all the amino acids, essential and non-essential. Wild rice has like 6 grams. Steel cut oats has 5 grams. And the list goes on. I never count my protein. I know I'm getting enough. Basically, no doctor in America has ever in the last, I don't know, century diagnosed kwashiorkor, which is a disease that comes from a lot of protein deficiency. So we're getting enough protein. Don't worry about it. I'm going to conclude today by just sharing a few things that are completely free, and I'd love for you to know about it. One is Power Up, pinklotus.com, go to Power Up. This is just an amazing free online community where we're bursting with ways to connect with each other. You can educate yourself. You can hold a fundraiser if you're, say, with breast cancer and needing reconstruction and are underinsured. We have events listed here, but a couple of my favorites to highlight. One is called Breast Buddies, and it was born out of my reading this study. The LACE study followed over 2,200 early stage women with breast cancer for 10.8 years. And those who reported out low levels of social support from friends and family or a lack of religious and social participation were 58% more likely to have died during the decade of follow-up than those with low levels of support. And remember, these are early stage cancers, so we weren't really expecting them to die. And it just really highlights to me the impact of psychosocial connection and support and friendship and feeling accepted and loved. And not everybody has a BFF. Not everybody has a family that they like. So everyone can have a breast buddy. Breast Buddies pairs you age for age, stage for stage, treatment for treatment, newly diagnosed women with those who have been there, done that, solely for the purposes of friendship. So you can go in and like log in your details. You can start as a voyeur if you want. You have to sign up, but then you can put in like I'm 51, mastectomy, chemo, and boop, up will pop all the women who are plus or minus 5 years of age from you who had a mastectomy and did chemo. And they're there because they would love to hear from you. The other cool thing that I just started this year with my husband, Andy, are local chapters. There are 25 across the country in major cities. And this is just a cool group of people who are like-minded. You don't have to have cancer. Most of these activities, I bring the kids along. We do bike rides, hikes, walks, runs. We're going camping for the first time. In a few months, we do volunteering. I have group fasting because misery loves company, and I hate doing a 5-day fast, but I'm going to do one. And make everybody do it with me on Zoom. We're going to eat dinner together. Dinner, I call it dinner. It's like astronaut soup food. Anyway, so again, it's just about becoming a cancer kicker. I also launched this past year, my cancer kicking kitchen has cook lives with Kristi, who is a certified holistic nutritionist. I circled her, like you can't tell the difference between my face and that face, but people are like, "You're sisters?" And we're like, yeah, our mom couldn't think of a different name. So we're just both named Christine, which isn't true. My name is actually Kristi, legally. Anyway, Cook Live with Kristi and Dr. Kristi. They're cook-alongs. Most people don't cook along, and I would love it if you did, because that would make me so much happier. But it's on Zoom, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and you can watch it in retrospect. We post it all, but it's so fun when it's live, and I do answer all the questions, or most of the questions that come through the Zoom channel. And what's different about it is I teach people why food can be delicious medicine. I spotlight certain ingredients in the meal of the month and dive into the science as to why it's so healthy to eat and dispel common food myths. And I think you'll think it's really fun. So please join me. Here are my books. There's only one. It's kind of a misnomer. This is just paperback, but it has a bonus chapter. It has a chapter 11. So maybe you want that one. Again, Elements is our online store. You will find a number of leading women's health and breast cancer support products here. They're really intelligently formulated. Everything is really safe, always vegan. Many of them have randomized controlled trials behind them, making them very unique offerings. There's the non-estrogenic menopause miracle, which people cannot stop taking because then they have all their hot flashes and mood swings come back. It works incredibly well. So anyway, please check out the store. And then finally, don't forget, letsbeatbreastcancer.org. We are live and in action all year long, but particularly in October, we hit it hard because we've got all of our live giveaways going on and Zooms every Thursday in the month of October. So don't miss out on your chance at cool giveaways and weekly newsletters. Join us as we all beat breast cancer by following a plant-based diet, exercising regularly, minimizing alcohol, and maintaining an ideal body weight.
Love it. I feel like we have just learned so much over this past, I would say an hour or so. I'm not even looking at the clock, but I mean, there's just so much there. And the only question that I have left for you is, it goes back to something you talked about really close to the start of the show, is that sugar cube size cancer cell. Like, how were they able to determine that it sheds 3.2 million of these cells like every single day? Like 3.2 million. Like, did somebody sit there, Dr. Funk, and count them individually? I mean, that is just boom, mind-blowing to me.
So this was a 1974 study conducted by the NIH. And what I did tell you is that it was studied in mice. So they took human breast cancers and grafted them onto mice. I'm so sorry, little mice, I am. But I now have this fact, so I'm going to spread the fact. Thank you, mice, for sacrificing yourselves to tell us. To me, something like that's a call to action. Like when you hear that, you just got to be like, wow, God or that extra broccoli I had saved me, because I didn't even know about plant-based before I had my diagnosis. And I was saved from those millions upon millions of cells day after day after day because of what little good I was doing. And now that I'm going to amp up my game, this thing is not going to come back. And you can feel that confident. So yeah, they did blood draws on the mice. And yeah, you can quantify, they have cell quantification, magical things that they put blood in and they can count cells like that.
Wow. 3.2 million. That's such an enormous number. Really hard to wrap your head around that.
You know what? This is a good thing for me to share with your audience because I'm obsessed with it. And we've never talked about it before because we normally focus on food and lifestyle, but this is my new go-to in all of my cancer patients. It's called Signatera and it goes through insurance. And when insurance doesn't cover it, they don't charge you right now. So I'm obsessed. So this is what it is. They take your cancer from the slides and they analyze it for 16 different DNA mutations that belong to your cancer, and they make a blood test out of it. Then they come to your house, draw your blood, and run it through that test. If you're cured, you should never ever have any of those mutations that belong to a cancer that's hopefully in a bucket in a lab somewhere in your blood, right? Right. So they run your blood every 3 months, and the breast data shows that if you are 2 years with a 0 level of mutations in your blood, less than 3% of women will ever recur.
Wow.
And if the blood test should become positive, this is key. 9.5 months from now in the breast population is when a PET CT will light up or symptoms will show up like bone pain, or tumor markers that we test like CEA will rise up. So you have this almost 10-month window in which to intervene, because you know the rogue cells are coming and they're coming back, but you've got 10 months to do things to make sure that that never happens. And this is a test relevant for every single solid cancer that exists. So breast, but also prostate and lung and colon and gastric and ovarian, every cancer can be tested. So if you want to learn more about it, I have an FAQ at tumordna.com. You can read a little deep dive into that, and then ask your doctor about ordering it for you, or you can order it at tumordna.com.
Wow. That I had no idea such a thing existed. That's
It's a
very
game
neat.
changer.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
I'm
is the
gonna
first
check that out.
company on earth to offer it, but more are following suit.
All right. Well, look, you and I still have a lot to cover here. We've got one more episode to go, and that's when we're going to do a deep dive into our four-pronged approach for Let's Beat Breast Cancer, and really why each one of those 4 steps or prongs is really key for taking your risk of cancer and lowering it. I mean, smashing it, mashing it, just rub it into the ground as far as it'll possibly go. Drop that risk and go on and have that healthy future that we all want. So much to talk about. We're going to push pause for now. We're going to come back and do that on the next episode, Dr. Funk. But thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.
If your health IQ is a couple of points higher than it was a few minutes ago, go ahead and like this video or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And to take it even higher, head over to Apple Podcast or wherever you get your favorite shows. Look for The Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. Hit the subscribe button there as well and help to make your world a healthier place.